I just need one call. The man's voice was steady, almost too steady for someone standing in the cold at nearly midnight. Rain dripping from the edge of the station roof in uneven taps that echoed down the empty platform. Ava Collins did not look up right away. Her thumb hovered over the cracked screen of her phone, the faint glow reflecting in the shallow fracture that ran from the top corner to the center like a fault line. A train rumbled somewhere far off, not close enough to arrive, just close enough to vibrate the metal bench beneath her. It will take 10 seconds, he added. She lifted her eyes then. He stood a few feet away, soaked through, dark hair plastered to his forehead, jacket thin and clinging to his frame like it had given up trying to keep him warm hours ago. But it was not the way he looked that held her attention. It was the way he waited. No shifting, no nervous glance down the tracks. Just still. Ava had spent 5 years listening to voices she could not see, learning the difference between panic and performance in less than a heartbeat. This one did not fit either. There are cameras, she said, nodding vaguely toward a dead black dome above the turnstile that had not worked in months. Her voice came out quieter than she intended. The man followed her gaze, then back to her. Then you will know I gave it right back. A drop of water slid from his sleeve and hit the concrete between them. Ava tightened her grip on the phone. For a second, the world narrowed to the small rectangle in her hand, the faint buzz of low battery, the memory she did not invite but never escaped. A voice. A man. Breathing hard. Please do not hang up. 8 seconds. That was all it had taken. She blinked and the station came back into focus, the flicker of fluorescent lights overhead, the smell of damp metal and something stale in the air. The man had not moved. What is the call for? She asked. To tell someone something they do not know yet, he said. Not help. Not emergency. Not a ride. Ava's jaw tightened just slightly. Her thumb brushed the edge of the screen where the glass lifted just enough to catch her skin. 10 seconds, he repeated, softer this time. A train horn echoed again, louder now, closer. The rails hummed beneath her feet. Ava exhaled slowly through her nose, then tapped once, twice, opening the dial pad. Her finger hesitated over the record icon, then pressed it. The red dot blinked alive. She did not look at him when she held the phone out. He took it carefully, like it weighed more than it should. Thank you, he said, and for the first time, there was something there. Not relief. Not exactly. Something measured. Ava watched his hand instead of his face, the way his fingers moved without hesitation, dialing from memory. No pause. No correction. The call connected almost instantly. He lifted the phone to his ear, turning slightly away, just enough to block her view, but not her hearing. It is me, he said, low, precise. A beat. Yes. It is active. Ava felt it then, not fear, not yet, but a shift, like the air pressure before a storm. Her shoulders stiffened, her eyes flicking once toward the tracks, once toward the exit behind them. The train lights were beginning to glow in the distance, a pale beam cutting through the dark tunnel. The man's voice dropped even lower. You were wrong about the timing. Ava swallowed. Her hand hovered near where the phone had been, fingers curling slightly like they still held it. She could step forward. She could take it back. She did not. Not this time. If you are still here, listening, you are already part of this moment. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell so you do not miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you are watching from. Because right now, somewhere between midnight and whatever comes after, Ava Collins just made a choice she cannot take back. The train roared into the station just as the man lowered the phone slightly, not hanging up, just enough to listen harder, his eyes fixed somewhere beyond the tunnel lights like he was tracking something Ava could not see. Wind from the arriving cars pushed damp air across the platform, tugging at her coat, carrying the metallic screech of brakes that cut through everything else, but his voice stayed. Even, threaded through the noise. No, you listen to me, he said quietly. If you move it now, you lose the window. Ava's pulse kicked up, not fast, just sharper, like a switch had flipped somewhere behind her ribs. The red recording dot blinked steadily in her mind, even though the phone was no longer in her hand. She watched his shoulder instead, the slight tension in the fabric each time he spoke, the way his grip on the phone never shifted. People spilled out of the train, boots hitting concrete, muffled conversations, a laugh that echoed too loudly for the hour, But none of them paid attention to the two of them standing just outside the flow, just far enough to be invisible. Ava took a step back, then another, until the cold metal of the bench pressed lightly against the back of her knees. She did not sit. Not yet. Her right hand drifted toward her jacket pocket, fingers brushing the edge of the small plastic case she carried everywhere, the old dispatcher headset folded inside. She had not used it in weeks, not since they reassigned her to administrative overflow after the review. Temporary, her supervisor had said, not meeting her eyes, sliding the paperwork across the desk like it might burn him. 8 seconds. That was what the report said. 8 seconds between the moment she marked the call as non-urgent and the moment the line went dead. She had listened to it again in the review room, headphones on, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the waveform moving across the screen in a clean, unforgiving line. Sir, if this is not an emergency, I need to clear the line. Her own voice had sounded calm. Efficient. Wrong. There had been a pause on the other end, not empty, just something she could not name, like a breath held too long. Please, the man had said. Not loud, not panicked, just certain. She had clicked end. Ava blinked hard, dragging herself back to the platform as the last of the passengers moved past, the train doors hissing shut behind them. The man in front of her shifted his stance slightly, turning just enough that she could see part of his profile now, water still dripping from his jawline. Say that again, he murmured into the phone. A pause. His eyes narrowed just a fraction. No, you do not get to reinterpret it now. Ava's jaw tightened. This was not someone asking for help. This was someone giving instructions. Her gaze flicked to the exit again, then to the security gate, then back to him. The phone. Her phone. The recording. She pushed off the bench and stepped closer, not enough to interrupt, just enough to hear more clearly over the fading rumble of the departing train. Timestamp is wrong, he was saying. Check it against the backup, not the live feed. Backup. Feed. The words landed wrong, out of place in a midnight train station conversation. Ava's fingers curled again, this time tighter. Procedure said take control of the device, disengage, report. That was the version of her that had been trained, the one who followed scripts, cleared lines, kept things moving. The other version, the one that had sat in a dark review room listening to a man's last seconds loop over and over, did not trust clean procedures anymore. The man exhaled slowly, then finally pulled the phone away from his ear, not hanging up, just lowering it again as if he was weighing something. For the first time, he looked directly at her. Not past her. Not through her. At her. You hear patterns? He asked, voice low enough that it barely carried beyond the space between them. Ava did not answer right away. Her throat felt dry, like she had swallowed too much cold air. Sometimes, she said finally. He studied her for a beat, something unreadable passing through his expression, then gave a small nod, like that was the answer he expected. Good, he said. The word landed heavier than it should have. Ava's stomach tightened slightly. Because this one is about to break. He lifted the phone again, and Ava felt it then, not as a memory this time, but as something present, unfolding, the same quiet certainty that had been on the other end of that call 5 years ago, the same kind of voice that did not ask twice. Her hand moved before she fully decided, hovering just inches from the phone now, close enough to take it back, to end it, to shut it down before whatever he meant by break actually did. She did not touch it. Not yet. Ava's hand did not pull back, but it did not move forward either, suspended in that narrow space where choice had not yet hardened into action. The man's thumb shifted slightly along the edge of her phone, adjusting his grip without looking down, like he already understood its weight, its balance, its limitations. The crack across the screen caught the overhead light again, splitting his reflection into two faint, misaligned halves. He spoke into the receiver once more, quieter now, almost conversational. You built redundancy for a reason. Use it. A pause. Then, softer, no, not the public channel. Ava's eyes flicked to the screen instinctively, even though she could not see it from this angle. She knew that interface by memory, every icon, every flicker when the battery dipped under 20%. The recording was still running. It had to be. She had not closed it. A faint warmth spread through her palm where the phone had been minutes ago, phantom weight lingering like muscle memory, refusing to reset. She lowered her hand slowly, fingers brushing the seam of her jacket again before slipping inside. The plastic case pressed cool against her knuckles as she pulled it out, flipping it open with a practiced motion. The headset inside was older than the job she had now, matte black worn smooth at the edges, one ear cushion slightly compressed from years of use. She turned it over once in her hand, thumb grazing the small serial number sticker half peeled from the side. It had been issued during her first week, back when she still wrote everything down in a notebook, when every call felt like something she could fix if she just listened closely enough. "You always listen all the way through," her training officer had told her, leaning back in a rolling chair, arms crossed, watching her struggle through her third shift. "Even when it sounds like nothing." Ava had nodded then, scribbling it down like a rule that could be followed, something clean and reliable. She slid the headset out of the case now, not putting it on, just holding it, letting the weight settle into her hand. Across from her, the man shifted again, this time turning just enough that she caught the edge of his expression as he listened to the voice on the other end. Not tense, focused, like he was aligning pieces she could not see. "You are late," he said, not sharply, just stating it. "Which means they are already adjusting." The words threaded into Ava's thoughts before she could stop them. Adjusting, like variables in a system, like something already in motion. Her gaze dropped briefly to the ground between them, where a small puddle had formed from the rain dripping off his coat. The reflection trembled each time a drop hit, distorting the dim station lights into something fractured and unstable. She remembered the waveform again, not as sound this time, but as shape, the way it had spiked once, sharply, right before the line went dead. She had replayed that spike more times than the rest of the call, watching it rise and fall, trying to decide if it meant something she had missed. Ava exhaled slowly, then stepped closer, close enough now that she could hear the faint murmur from the phone even when he did not speak. The voice on the other end was distant, filtered, but not panicked. Controlled. That bothered her more than anything. People who were afraid sounded different. This was not fear. This was calculation. The man lowered the phone slightly again, not breaking the connection, just shifting it away from his ear as if he needed to think for half a second without losing the line. His eyes moved to the headset in her hand, a brief glance, but deliberate. "You kept it," he said. Not a question. Ava looked down at it, then back up at him. "They said I did not need it anymore," she replied, her voice even, but quieter than before. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded once, like that confirmed something for him. "People stop using tools when they stop trusting what they hear," he said. Ava did not respond. Her thumb pressed lightly into the worn edge of the ear cushion, feeling the give in the foam, the way it molded slightly under pressure. She lifted it, almost without thinking, and held it near enough that she could catch the faint spill of sound from the phone when he angled it back toward his ear. "Cross-check the archive," the distant voice was saying. "If it matches, you pull it. If it does not, static clip the rest, just for a fraction of a second," but Ava felt it like a missed step on a staircase. Her eyes snapped to the phone. The crack across the screen flickered faintly, a brief distortion that passed so quickly it could have been imagined. But she knew that glitch. She had seen it before when the device struggled to hold a stable signal. Low battery, weak reception, or interference. She shifted her stance slightly, angling herself closer to the man without fully stepping into his space, the headset still in her hand, her attention narrowing to the rhythm of the voice on the line. The pauses, the cadence, not random, never random. Her fingers tightened around the headset as something settled into place in her mind. Not a full picture, just an edge, a pattern beginning to form where before there had only been noise. 5 years ago, she had ended a call because it did not fit the pattern she expected. Tonight, she let the silence between words stretch just a little longer, listening past what was said, waiting for what came next. The static did not return, but the silence that followed stretched just long enough to feel intentional, like someone had pressed pause on a conversation Ava was not supposed to fully hear. The man did not react to it. He did not even glance at the phone, just waited, counting something internally, his breathing steady despite the chill that still clung to his clothes. Ava shifted her weight, the headset now hanging loosely from her fingers, and angled herself closer, without making it obvious, her attention fixed on the rhythm of the call rather than the words themselves. Patterns first, meaning later. That was how she had been trained before she started doubting her own instincts. "You are losing time," the voice on the other end said. Clearer now, no distortion. "I am aware," the man replied. His tone did not change, but something underneath it tightened. Not urgency, exactly, but precision narrowing further. Ava watched the way his jaw set, the slight pause before he spoke again, like he was adjusting not just what he said, but how it would be received. "Then stop thinking like they expect you to," he added. A longer pause this time. Ava caught a faint shift in the cadence of the distant voice, a hesitation that did not belong to someone in control. She had heard that before too, callers trying to maintain composure while something slipped just out of their reach. Her grip on the headset tightened, thumb pressing harder into the worn edge as if grounding herself in something tangible. A soft chime cut through the air, sharp and out of place against the low hum of the station. Ava's head turned instinctively toward the source. The departure board flickered, its digital rose blinking erratically before settling on a delayed schedule that did not match what she had seen when she arrived. She frowned slightly, her gaze lingering on the board a second longer than necessary. It was subtle but wrong. She looked back at the man. He had noticed it too. Not with a dramatic shift, not with surprise, but with the smallest tilt of his head, like he had been expecting something to change and was simply confirming it had. "It is already propagating," he said into the phone, quieter now. The word landed oddly in Ava's ears, more technical than anything else he had said so far, more deliberate. The voice on the other end responded quickly this time, too fast, overlapping slightly with his last word. Ava could not catch the sentence, but she caught the tone. Defensive. The man's expression did not soften. "Then you are looking in the wrong place," he said. He lowered the phone again, not ending the call, just pulling it away like before, giving himself a sliver of space. His eyes shifted to Ava, not directly at her at first, but toward the headset still in her hand. "You hear it too," he said, almost under his breath. Ava did not answer immediately. She turned her head slightly, listening past the obvious sounds, the distant hum of the next train, the occasional drip of water hitting concrete, the faint electrical buzz overhead. Beneath it, something else. Not a sound exactly. A disruption in the rhythm. The board flickered again, just once, then stabilized. "It is not just the call," she said finally. Her voice came out lower than before, more certain, even if she was not entirely sure why. The man's gaze lifted to meet hers fully this time. For a second, neither of them spoke. There was no recognition there, no shared history, but something aligned, briefly, like two separate lines crossing at the same point. He nodded once. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. "No," he said. "It is not." Another chime echoed from the platform, followed by a voice over the intercom announcing a change in service that did not quite match the board. Ava's brow tightened. The mismatch was small, easy to miss if you were not paying attention, but it was there. She had spent years listening for inconsistencies, for the moment when something did not line up with what it should be. Her fingers moved without much thought, bringing the headset up, not fully on, just close enough to her ear to catch the faint spill of sound when the man angled the phone slightly in her direction. The voice on the line was sharper now, more controlled again, but underneath it, Ava could hear the shift, the effort it took to maintain that control. "You need to shut it down," the voice said. "If it spreads." The line crackled again, brief but unmistakable. Ava's eyes flicked to the screen. The battery indicator hovered dangerously low, a thin red sliver that pulsed faintly with each transmission. She knew that signal. Not just low power. Strain. The man followed her gaze this time. Just a quick glance, but enough to register. "How long?" he asked, not into the phone, but to her. Ava did the math automatically, the way she used to during long calls when she had to predict how long a connection would hold under pressure. "Maybe a minute," she said. "Less if it spikes again." He considered that, eyes narrowing slightly, then lifted the phone back to his ear. "You have 40 seconds, he said into the line, his tone shifting for the first time, not louder, but harder, like the margin for error had just disappeared. Ava felt something tighten in her chest. Not panic. Not yet, but the awareness of a countdown that did not belong to her, but would still pull her in. The departure board flickered again, longer this time, the rows of text scrambling for half a second before snapping back into place. Ava's gaze locked onto it, then back to the man. This was no longer just a call. Whatever he had connected to, whatever he had triggered, it was bleeding into everything else. Her hand hovered near the phone again, not to take it this time, but as if ready to steady it, to keep the connection alive just a little longer. The man did not pull away. He did not ask her to. He just kept speaking, precise, controlled, threading his words through whatever system lay on the other end. And for the first time since he had stepped into her line of sight, Ava realized this was not just his operation. She was already part of it. 30 seconds, Ava said quietly, not looking at him, her eyes fixed on the faint pulse of red at the top of the screen as the battery warning flickered again. The man did not respond right away, but she felt the shift beside her, the slight adjustment in how he held the phone, like he was recalibrating not just time, but trust. Then we do not waste them, he said into the line, his voice cutting through whatever resistance waited on the other end. Ava stayed close now, closer than before, close enough that her shoulder almost brushed his sleeve when the next ripple of cold air moved through the station. She did not step back. She did not step forward either. Just stayed there, anchored in that narrow space where neither of them had asked for company, but neither had pushed it away. The voice on the line responded again, faster now, sharper, the control thinning just slightly at the edges. Ava listened, not to the words, but to the breaks between them, the places where certainty slipped and something else tried to fill the gap. Her fingers tightened around the headset, then loosened again, the plastic warm now from her grip. "You said backup?" she murmured, not to interrupt, just low enough that he could hear if he wanted to. He did. His eyes flicked toward her for half a second, then back to the invisible point in front of him. "Secondary archive," he said, covering the receiver just enough to keep the other end from catching it. "Off-grid." Ava nodded once, almost to herself. Off-grid meant no standard logging, no clean timestamps, no predictable delays. It meant listening mattered more than anything else. She lifted the headset slightly, not putting it on fully, just angling it so the faint bleed of sound from the phone carried a little clearer into her ear. The man did not stop her. He did not even acknowledge it this time. He just shifted his stance a fraction, enough to give her a better angle without making it obvious. The train platform had quieted again, the earlier rush replaced by a low, hollow stillness broken only by distant mechanical hums and the occasional drip of water. Ava let the rhythm settle around her, let it fade just enough so she could focus on the pattern beneath the voice. There it was again, not in what the person was saying, but how they paused. A fraction too long before certain words. A slight overlap when they corrected themselves. It was not panic. It was adjustment. "He is not following you," Ava said softly, the realization forming as she spoke. The man's grip on the phone stilled for just a moment. "He is reacting to something else." A beat of silence passed between them. Then the man's gaze shifted fully to her again, sharper this time, more focused. "Say that again," he said, not into the phone, but to her. Ava hesitated, not because she was unsure, but because saying it out loud made it real in a way listening did not. "He is not tracking you," she said. "He is tracking the delay." The words hung there, suspended between them. The man's expression did not change much, but something behind it aligned, clicked into place. He turned back to the phone immediately. "You are not ahead of it," he said into the line, his tone flattening into something colder, more precise. "You are inside it." The response on the other end came too quickly, defensive again, but this time Ava could hear the fracture clearly, the way the voice tried to cover it and failed just enough. The man did not wait for it to finish. "Check the second layer," he continued. "Not the surface logs. The shadow buffer." Ava's breath caught slightly, not from fear, but from recognition. Shadow buffer. That was not standard terminology. That was something you used when you did not want something to be seen in the first place. The battery icon flashed again, brighter this time, the screen dimming slightly as if the phone itself was struggling to keep up. Ava shifted closer without thinking, her shoulder brushing his arm now, the contact brief, but real. He did not move away. 15 seconds, she said. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly. The voice on the line changed again, urgency bleeding through now, the careful control unraveling in small, uneven pieces. Ava listened harder, filtering past the words, locking onto the pattern that had revealed itself. There. A repetition. Not exact, but close enough. A phrase that came back, slightly altered each time, like someone adjusting variables in real time. He is looping, Ava said under her breath. He is not answering you. He is buying time. The man's jaw tightened, just a fraction. For what? He asked, not to her, not to the voice, just into the space between them. Ava did not answer immediately. She did not have to. The departure board flickered again, longer now, the rows of information scrambling in a way that no longer looked like a glitch. It looked intentional. Her gaze lifted to it, then back to the phone. For it to finish, she said. The words landed quietly, but they carried weight. The man did not argue. He adjusted his grip again, bringing the phone closer, his voice dropping lower, more controlled. Then you are out of time, he said into the line. Ava felt the moment tighten, not like a snap, but like a wire pulled too taut. Her hand moved again, this time not hovering, but settling lightly against the back of the phone, steadying it as the signal wavered. He glanced at her briefly, just a flicker, then let her hand stay. No permission given. None needed. The connection crackled once more, sharper this time, and Ava leaned in just enough to catch the last clear thread of the voice on the other end. Not the words. The tone. Resigned. That was new. The man exhaled slowly, then spoke one final time, his voice cutting clean through the noise. Too late, he said. The screen went dark a heartbeat later. Not a dramatic shutdown, not a sudden drop. Just a quiet fade, the red sliver of battery finally giving out, the recording ending with a soft, almost apologetic click. Ava did not pull her hand away right away. The silence that followed was different from before. Not empty. Settled. She lowered the headset slowly, her fingers still wrapped around it, and looked at the blank screen, then up at him. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then, almost without thinking, Ava said, "You knew it would end like that." It was not an accusation. Not exactly. He looked at the phone in his hand, then back at her, something unreadable crossing his expression. "I knew it might," he said. Ava held his gaze a second longer, then gave a small nod, more to herself than to him. "You still let it run." Another pause. This one longer. He did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than before. "So did you." The words settled between them, not heavy, not light, just there, undeniable. Ava looked down at the phone again, at her reflection faintly visible in the dark screen, fractured by the crack that had been there long before tonight. She pressed her thumb lightly against it, then let out a slow breath. For the first time in a long while, she had not ended the call, and for reasons she could not fully explain yet, that felt like it mattered more than how it ended. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. The platform settled into a quiet that felt heavier than before, like something had just passed through and left the air slightly altered. Ava's thumb traced the cracked edge of the screen once more before she let her hand fall away. The man still held the phone, but now it was just an object again, inert, its purpose already spent. He turned it over once in his hand, almost absently, then extended it back to her. She took it without a word. The glass was cold again. Not long ago, it had been warm from his grip. Ava slipped it into her coat pocket, but she did not zip it up. "Not yet." "You recorded it," he said, not asking. Ava's eyes flicked up, then back down. "Yeah." A beat. Automatic habit. He nodded once, like that confirmed something he had already assumed. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, fingers moving with the same controlled precision she had noticed all night, and pulled out something thin, matte black. Not a wallet, not a phone, a card. He held it between two fingers for a second, not offering it yet, just looking at it, as if deciding something. Ava watched the movement, the hesitation that did not match the rest of him. Then he handed it to her. She took it slowly. The surface felt heavier than it should have, cool metal instead of plastic. No bright logo, no flashy design. Just a name, edged clean and sharp under the station lights. Ethan Blake. Beneath it, smaller text. Blake Systems. Ava's eyes moved across the letters once, then again, slower this time. Something in her expression shifted, not wide or dramatic, just a tightening around the edges, like a piece of information had slid into place and locked. "That is not a company that asks for 10-second calls in subway stations," she said quietly. He exhaled through his nose, almost a half laugh, but without humor. "No," he said. "It is not." Ava turned the card slightly, catching the light, then flipped it once as if expecting something else on the back. There was nothing. No number. No address. Just the name again, smaller, almost like an echo. She looked back at him. The wet jacket, the worn look, the stillness. It did not line up cleanly with the name in her hand. So what was that, she asked. Not accusation. Not curiosity alone either. Something in between. He did not answer right away. Instead, he glanced past her, toward the departure board that had finally stabilized, then toward the tunnel where the next train would come from. Calculating. Always calculating. A test, he said finally. Ava's jaw shifted slightly. For him. For the system, he corrected. Then, after a pause, and for you. She let out a small breath, not quite a laugh. That is convenient. He did not react to the edge in her tone. If anything, he seemed to expect it. You heard it, he said instead. Most people would not. Ava looked down at the card again, her thumb pressing lightly against the engraved letters. Most people are not listening for the same thing. The words came out before she filtered them. He caught that. She could tell by the way his gaze sharpened just a fraction. What are you listening for, he asked. Ava did not answer immediately. Her other hand drifted back to the headset, still hanging from her fingers. She turned at once, the worn cushion catching against her skin. The moment someone realizes they are wrong, she said finally. It sounds different. A pause settled between them. Not empty. Measuring. He nodded slowly, like he understood more than she had said. You did not cut the call, he said. Ava's shoulders lifted slightly, then settled. No, why? The question landed softer than she expected, but it carried weight. Ava looked past him this time, toward the dark stretch of track, her reflection faint in the metal rail. For a second, she saw the review room again, the waveform frozen on the screen, that single spike she could never explain. She blinked it away. Because it did not feel finished, she said. He watched her for a moment, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was not, he said. Ava looked back at him, something tightening in her chest again, not discomfort, not quite. You knew that too. It was not a question. He did not deny it. Instead, he reached into his jacket again, slower this time, and pulled out a second device. Smaller. Clean. No cracks. He tapped the screen once, and it lit up instantly, bright, stable. A waveform appeared. Ava's breath caught slightly, not from surprise, but from recognition. The shape on the screen was familiar. Not identical, but close enough. You were not the only one recording, he said quietly. Ava's fingers tightened around the headset. Of course you were not, she replied. But there was less edge now, more understanding threaded through it. He tilted the device slightly so she could see more clearly. The waveform moved in small increments, replaying the last moments of the call. Ava leaned in without thinking, her shoulder brushing his again, closer than before, her attention narrowing completely to the screen. Listen here, he said, tapping a specific point. The sound that followed was subtle, almost nothing, but Ava heard it immediately, not in the voice, in the gap. Her eyes flicked up to his. That is not delay, she said. He shook his head once. No, a beat. That is insertion. The words settled between them, heavier than anything he had said so far. Ava looked back at the screen, then at her own phone in her pocket, then back at him. The pieces did not just connect. They overlapped. And for the first time, she understood that the call had not just revealed something about the system. It had revealed something about her place inside it. Ava did not look away from the waveform right away. Her eyes stayed fixed on the small disruption Ethan had pointed out, the place where the silence did not behave like silence, where something had been placed instead of simply missing. Her fingers tightened slightly around the headset, the plastic creaking faintly under the pressure. Insertion means someone wanted that gap there, she said, her voice quieter now, more inward than before. Ethan did not respond immediately. He lowered the device just a fraction, enough that the glow softened between them, but not enough to break her focus entirely. It means someone needed control over what was heard, he said. Ava let out a slow breath, her gaze finally lifting from the screen to his face. And you are trying to prove that, she said. Not a question. He held her look for a moment, then gave a small nod. I am trying to stop it. The distinction hung there, subtle but deliberate. Ava's jaw shifted slightly, her eyes narrowing just enough to show she had noticed it. Those are not the same thing, she said. Ethan's expression did not harden, but something behind it steadied, like he had been waiting for that line to be drawn. No, he agreed. They are not. A faint vibration echoed through the platform again, not from a train this time, but from somewhere deeper in the system, a low hum that seemed to ripple through the metal underfoot. Ava felt it through the soles of her shoes, a quiet reminder that whatever they had touched was still moving. She glanced down briefly, then back up at him. So what happens next? She asked. Ethan slid his device into his jacket, the screen going dark. As it disappeared, next, he said, I isolate the source, confirm the pathway, and shut it down before it scales. Ava's lips pressed together slightly. The words were clean, controlled, structured, like a plan that had been rehearsed long before tonight. And everyone inside that pathway? She asked. Ethan hesitated. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Ava caught it immediately. They get cut off, he said finally. From the system. Ava took a step back then, not far, but enough to create space between them that had not been there a moment ago. Her hand dropped to her side, the headset hanging loosely again, no longer anchored to anything. Cut off, she repeated, her tone flat, but not empty. Ethan watched her, his posture still, but more alert now, like the ground between them had shifted. You were talking about shutting down entire nodes, she said. Whatever is connected to them does not just disappear. Neither does what is being inserted into them, he replied. Ava's gaze flicked toward the departure board again, then back to him. You do not know that yet, she said. You think you do. Ethan did not argue. He did not step forward either. I have enough to act, he said. Ava let out a short breath through her nose, something sharper this time. That is exactly the problem, she said. A pause stretched between them, filled not with silence, but with everything they were not saying. Ava shifted her weight, her fingers brushing against the edge of her pocket where her phone rested. The recording. The only piece she had that he did not fully control. You let that call run knowing it would not finish clean, she said. You needed it to break so you could prove something. Ethan's eyes held steady. I needed to see how it broke. Ava shook her head slightly, not in disagreement, but in recognition of the difference. And I needed to know why it started, she said. The words landed heavier than she intended. Ethan's gaze sharpened again, not defensive, but focused. Then you already know, he said. Ava did not respond right away. Her mind pulled back, not to the waveform, not to the call they had just heard, but to another line, another voice, years ago, asking her not to hang up. She swallowed, her throat tight for just a second before she pushed through it. No, she said quietly. I know what it sounds like when something is wrong. That is not the same as knowing who made it that way. Ethan shifted slightly, his stance adjusting, not toward her, but not away either. If we wait to know everything, he said, it spreads. Ava's eyes lifted to meet his again, sharper now. If you act before you understand it, she countered. You cut off people who might not even know they are inside it. Another pause. This one longer. The hum beneath their feet pulsed again, faint but steady, like a system breathing. Ethan's jaw tightened just slightly. You are asking me to risk escalation, he said. Ava's grip on the headset tightened again, the plastic creaking faintly. I am asking you to listen longer, she said. The words were simple, but they carried weight, drawn from somewhere deeper than the moment itself. Ethan looked at her for a long second, not searching for weakness, not measuring advantage, but something else. Alignment, or the lack of it. And if listening longer costs us the chance to stop it? He asked. Ava held his gaze, not flinching this time. Then at least we know what we are stopping, she said. The air between them shifted again, not breaking, not resolving, just tightening in a different way. Two directions. Both grounded. Both incomplete. Ethan exhaled slowly, his eyes flicking once toward the dark tunnel, then back to her. You are not wrong, he said. Ava's expression did not change. Neither are you, she replied. And that was the problem. Ava did not answer him again. Not with words. Her hand moved instead, slow at first, then with a quiet certainty that did not need permission. She reached into her pocket and pulled her phone back out, the cracked screen catching the dim overhead light as it came to life for a second, just long enough to confirm what she already knew. Dead. Completely. The recording had ended with the battery. Whatever they had captured was sealed exactly where it stopped. She turned it once in her hand, feeling the slight looseness under the glassware. The crack had spread over time, then looked up at Ethan. He was already watching her, not stopping her, not guiding her, just waiting. Ava slid her thumb along the side of the phone, then pressed and held, as if that might bring it back. Nothing. The screen stayed dark. She exhaled slowly, then reached into her other pocket and pulled out the headset again, the worn cushion brushing against her knuckles as she brought it up. For a second, she just stood there, holding both objects, one in each hand, like two versions of the same choice. Ethan shifted slightly, just enough that she could feel the movement beside her, but he did not step in. "If you shut it down now," she said quietly, her eyes still on the phone, "you stop whatever is spreading." A pause, and you lose everything inside it. Ethan did not answer. He did not need to. Ava lifted her head, her gaze meeting his, steady this time. "You said I was not wrong," she added. "That means you heard it too." Another pause, this one longer. Then Ethan gave a small nod. Ava swallowed, the motion subtle but deliberate, like she was bracing against something internal rather than external. Then she moved, not away from him, past him. She stepped toward the edge of the platform where the service panel sat half recessed into the wall, a metal door secured with a simple latch that had probably not been checked in months. She crouched slightly, setting the headset carefully on the ground beside her, not dropping it, not rushing it, just placing it with intention. Ethan watched her now with a different focus, sharper, more alert. "What are you doing?" he asked, not as a command, but not entirely neutral either. Ava did not look back. She reached for the latch and pulled. It resisted for a second, then gave with a dull click, the panel opening just enough to reveal a cluster of cables and a narrow interface port recessed inside. Old infrastructure, not designed for convenience, designed to be ignored. Ava leaned in slightly, the faint hum inside the panel vibrating through the metal. Her fingers hovered over the cables, then withdrew, shifting instead to her phone. She turned it over again, then pressed along the edge, where the casing had loosened. The back panel slid just enough to expose the battery connection. Ethan took a step closer now, not stopping her, but no longer distant. "That will not turn it back on," he said. Ava shook her head once. "I know." Her voice was calm, but there was something tighter underneath it now, something that carried weight. She pulled the battery free just enough to break contact completely, then repositioned it, not fully snapping it back in, leaving it loose. A partial connection. Unstable. She picked up the headset again, this time sliding it over one ear, the worn cushion settling into place like it remembered her. Ethan watched the movement, something shifting in his expression, not surprise, not quite concern. Recognition. "You are creating noise," he said. Ava did not respond immediately. She reached into the service panel instead, fingers finding the narrow port by touch more than sight, then guiding the loose end of the phone's internal connector closer to it. Not a perfect fit. Not meant to be. She adjusted, angled, pressed lightly. The phone screen flickered once. Just once. A faint, unstable glow. Ava's breath hitched, not from fear, but from the precision of it. "Not noise," she said quietly. "A gap." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are opening a second channel." Ava nodded, still focused on the connection in her hands. A place where it cannot rewrite itself fast enough. The screen flickered again, longer this time, the recording interface flashing back for a split second before collapsing again. But it was enough. Ava tapped the screen quickly, blindly, trusting muscle memory more than sight. The red dot blinked once, twice, then steadied. Recording again. Not clean, not stable, but alive. Ethan exhaled slowly, the realization settling in. If it propagates into that, it cannot overwrite both at the same time, Ava finished. Her voice was quiet, but firm now. It has to choose. A beat of silence passed between them. Then Ethan stepped closer, close enough that the faint warmth from his presence cut through the cold air around her. "And if it chooses this one," he said, his voice lower now, more measured, "you lose the only copy you have." Ava's fingers tightened slightly around the phone, the unstable connection sparking another brief flicker across the screen. She did not look up. "I already lost one," she said. The words were simple, but they carried something deeper, something older. Ethan did not respond right away. He did not need to. Ava adjusted the connection one last time, then pressed the phone more firmly into place, committing to it, letting the instability settle into a fragile balance. The headset hummed faintly against her ear, a thin thread of sound threading through it now, not clear, Not clean, but present. Ava closed her eyes for a second, just long enough to focus. Then she listened. Not for the words. For the pattern. Behind her, Ethan reached into his jacket again, pulling out his own device, the screen lighting up as he aligned it with what she had created. 2 channels now. One controlled. One unpredictable. The system between them shifting, forced into a shape it had not been designed to handle. Ava opened her eyes, her gaze steady again. This time, she did not hesitate. She did not reach to end it. She held the connection exactly where it was, fragile and exposed, and let it run. The connection did not collapse the way Ava expected. It thinned first, like a signal stretched too far, the faint thread in her headset breaking into uneven fragments before settling again into something quieter, more stable. Not gone, just contained. Ava kept her hand steady against the phone, even as the flicker in the screen slowed, the unstable glow easing into a dim but consistent pulse. Ethan's device in his hand reflected it almost instantly, the waveform smoothing where before it had stuttered, the sharp, irregular insertions flattening into something traceable, something that could finally be followed without shifting under its own weight. He did not say anything at first. He just watched it, his focus narrowing, fingers moving with deliberate precision across the screen as he mapped the pattern Ava had forced open. A pathway emerged. Not obvious, not clean, but real. Ava let out a breath she had been holding longer than she realized, her shoulders lowering slightly as the tension in her grip eased, though she did not pull away. Not yet. The headset hummed softly against her ear, no longer carrying a voice, just the quiet presence of a line that had not been cut too soon this time. Ethan exhaled slowly beside her, a sound that carried something different now, not urgency, not calculation alone. Resolution. It is isolated, he said, almost to himself. Ava did not respond. She watched the screen instead, the small, steady movement that proved it was still there, still alive, but no longer spreading. That mattered more than the words. Carefully, she eased the phone back from the panel, breaking the fragile connection she had created. The screen dimmed again, but it did not die. Not completely. It held just enough charge to show the final seconds of the recording, frozen where the pattern had changed. Ava removed the headset slowly, the cushion lifting from her ear with a faint resistance, like something reluctant to let go. She turned it once in her hand, then set it gently back into its case, closing it with a soft click. Not discarded, just returned. Ethan slipped his device back into his jacket, his movements quieter now, less guarded. When he looked at her again, there was no test left in his gaze. Just recognition. You stayed with it, he said. Ava glanced at him, then down at the phone in her hand, the crack across the glass catching the low light one last time. It was not finished, she replied. A small pause followed, not uncomfortable, just open. The kind that did not need to be filled right away. Somewhere down the platform, a train approached, its distant rumble building gradually, steady and predictable. Ava slipped the phone into her pocket again, this time zipping it closed without hesitation. She straightened, rolling her shoulders slightly as if resetting something internal, then looked toward the tracks, not rushing, not lingering, just moving forward. Ethan stepped alongside her, not leading, not following, matching her pace without comment. The space between them felt different now, not closer, not distant, aligned, in a way that did not require agreement to exist. The train pulled in, brakes, sighing softly as it came to a stop. Doors slid open with a muted chime. Ava paused for a second, then stepped inside, turning just enough to see if he would follow. He did, without hesitation, taking a place beside her as the doors closed behind them. Neither of them spoke as the train began to move, the city lights sliding past the windows in long, blurred streaks. Ava rested her hand lightly against the pole in front of her, fingers steady, no tremor this time. For once, she had not cut the line. For once, she had listened all the way through. And this time, it had been enough. If this moment stayed with you, leave your thoughts and follow along for what comes next. Thank you.